Devil Venerable also wants to know. Chapter 74, Prosperity and Chaos. Wenren Wu. Wenren he was carrying little Yin Hanjiang back when he heard a yell. Was it you who smashed up Wang Whisker's liquor shop the other day? A tall and sturdy man with broad shoulders and a thin waist, a head taller than young Wenren he, strode over furiously and flicked Wenren he hard on the forehead. We in the army are meant to protect the civilians, so how could you go around causing mayhem? Wenren he stared blankly for a moment before remembering that this was his older brother, Wenren Tai, whose name was the character for "the country prospers and the people live in peace." It was too long ago. Only after a lot of thought did Wenren he remembered that he really did smash the shop. Wang Whiskers was a perpetually pessimistic drunk who always said that this town would fall sooner or later, that the Wenren clan would leave and be replaced by some useless wine-guzzling official who would abandon the town and run away when trouble came. Instead of staying here, they might as well die sooner and reincarnate. Wenren he had come to the liquor shop a few days ago. The emotions of the youth were straightforward and strong. If he despised someone, then he despised someone. If he liked someone, then he liked them. He respected his father and elder brothers and thought nothing could possibly happen to the border town as long as the Wenren clan was there, so he was furious at hearing Wang Whisker's words. That night, he covered his face and smashed all of Wang Whisker's wine jars and also shaved off his whiskers, leaving his face full of cuts. He thought that he had kept his identity a secret, but he hadn't considered that in the border town, it was only him who was a young teenager with good martial arts skills who spent all day leaping across rooftops. His pair of bright and scornful eyes were different from anyone else's in the town and could be recognized at a glance. Young Awu's forehead was bright red from it being flicked by his brother. Yin Hanjiang got mad and bit down on Wenren Tai's arm. Wenren Tai was frantic. "Little kid, let go. My arm is tough. You'll break your teeth if you bite too hard." Little Yin Hanjiang. The sturdy young man was at a loss on what to do with Yin Hanjiang. He was afraid to hurt him, so he finally turned the blame on his younger brother. "Wenren Wu, why are you using children as a shield when you've done something wrong? Xiaozhang, let go." Wenren he gently squeezed Yin Hanjiang's face. "You've just gotten your face bandaged. Don't reopen your wounds." Yin Hanjiang slowly let go. Wenren he held him in one arm and hooked his other arm around his elder brother's shoulders. He pressed his forehead against Wenren Tai's broad arm and said softly, "Brother, I'm so glad to see you again." Even if it was only in his memories. Wenren Tai was stationed all year round at the border and his skin was darkly tanned and a bit rough. Upon hearing his brother's words, his face reddened. He lifted a scarred and calloused hand and he patted Wenren he on the head before coming back to his senses. "Don't give me that act, it's not going to make your beating any lighter." Wenren he took a beating that day. His father was at the army camp and his eldest brother was stationed at the rear lines, so Wenren Tai dragged him to apologize to Wang Whiskers and pay for the damages. Then in the liquor shop in front of the civilians of the town, military justice was enforced on Wenren he and he was sentenced to 50 strokes with a rod, beating him until the skin on his young back was split open. Little Yin Hanjiang was held by Wenren he's mother, howling in fury and struggling to escape from the pair of rough hands as he wanted to throw himself over his venerable one to protect him. "Don't move." The woman appeared gentle but was actually strict. "Stay still and watch. No matter what the reason, a soldier who harms a civilian for personal reasons must be punished by military law. Since he's young, his punishment has been lightened, otherwise it wouldn't end until that rod snaps." "It hurts." Yin Hanjiang put a hand on his own heart. "Of course it hurts. Pain on a son's body is pain in a mother's heart." A tear ran down Wenren Wu's mother's cheek but she wiped it away and continued. "But he must take the beating. No matter relating to the civilians is unimportant." A tear that she missed landed on Yin Hanjiang's hand. He licked it and it tasted salty and bitter. After the beating, Dr. Li bandaged Wenren he's wounds none too lightly. When it was done, he also needed to kneel in the memorial shrine for a day and night. Little Yin Hanjiang wanted to accompany him, and the people around him had no choice but to prepare a cushion for him. Because of the flesh that had just been gouged out of his legs, he couldn't kneel and had to sit on a cushion. He was filled with indignation as he said, "The Venerable One wasn't wrong." "No, I was wrong, Wenren," he explained gently. "How could the Venerable One be wrong?" Yin Hanjiang lifted his head and his eyes were filled with admiration. "Is this how you've seen me all this time?" Wenren, he smiled and flicked his nose. "No wonder I'm the phantom least like myself in your eyes." At the mention of how he was unable to distinguish the heart demons, Yin Hanjiang's face creased, looking very troubled. Since this was Wenren's consciousness and Yin Hanjiang was in a spiritual body, he wasn't affected by his heart demons. In his eyes, there was only the young Wenren. However, he was surrounded by Wenren's mother and brother, who looked a lot like him. They had hurt his Venerable One, but since they resembled him so much, so Yin Hanjiang couldn't find it in himself to punish them. Wenren, he rubbed little Yin Hanjiang's head and said seriously, "Yin Hanjiang, I wasn't born powerful or wise. In my youth, I thought my father and brothers were gods who could hold back all the world's calamities and that the border town would be peaceful forever, but this was a grave mistake. Who was all-powerful? People could only straighten their backs, not letting their weakness be seen even if their spine shattered." Wenren, he told Yin Hanjiang what happened after he was beaten. After he was punished for a month, his father, Marshal Wenren, came back to the town for a break. When he heard what had happened, he gave Wenren another beating. Afterwards, he had gone from strict to kind and told Wenren about the story of Wang Whiskers. The drunk was 50 years old, and 40 years ago, when Marshal Wenren was still a child, the border was in a desperate situation, with the troops having fled and the tribesmen invading. Wang Whiskers was only 10 years old then. His mother had hidden him in a wine cellar, and his innocent and young eyes witnessed unmentionable horrors. As he was listening, Yin Hanjiang thought of his own past, and the pain in his chest made it hard to breathe. Wenren, he pulled him into his lap and continued. "Yet he survived until my grandfather stepped up during the crisis, leading troops into battle and taking back the town. Since he was a war orphan, he could accompany the army to the nearest governmental office where there was an orphanage taking children such as himself. However, he didn't leave the town, and instead, he joined the civilian militia. A few years ago, before I was born, he joined my mother in defending the city walls, dropping stones on the enemy tribesmen to hold them off." "Then why did he say things like that?" Yin Hanjiang asked. "Because it was all true. The Wenren clan was unable to protect the town." Wenren's voice became filled with pain. This was the past he had never been able to revisit. All these vivid lives were filled with both good and evil. Whether crafty cheats or slippery businessmen, nobody could be painted fully in black or white, all making up a frontier town filled with life. In the end, the Wenren clan was exterminated and the court ceded 9 provinces at the border to the enemy tribes. The next day, the tribesmen massacred the town, not sparing men or women, the young or the old. "Don't look at me." Wenren, he held the tiny Yin Hanjiang in his lap, burying his face against his chest. Yin Hanjiang kept trying to raise his head, but it was always pushed back down by Wenren. Right now, he was still young and could show weakness. Drops of ice-cold water fell on Yin Hanjiang's hair. Yin Hanjiang thought that these droplets must also be salty and bitter. "Venerable," Yin Hanjiang's voice was muffled against Wenren's chest, which was filled with the aura of youth. "In here, call me Awu," Wenren, he said. Awu, Yin Hanjiang flushed and didn't know if it was just because he was being stifled in Wenren's chest. Wenren was very healthy and was jumping around again only a few days after being punished, arguing with his teacher every day. He stole the wine that had been buried for his sister's wedding and sat on the eaves drinking it, even giving some to Yin Hanjiang. After his mother found out, she grabbed his ears and spanked him. Little Yin Hanjiang sat on a chair, covering his eyes as he watched Brother Awu getting spanked. His fingers were spread wide though with a pair of large, bright eyes peeking out between his third and fourth fingers. "Mother, don't let him watch me get hit," Awu said unhappily. "You still no shame," his mother said, smacking him again. "Yet you stole your sister's wedding wine to drink. I can't believe you." After he was beaten, he was forced to copy characters. He was young and couldn't sit still and his backside still hurt, so he could only lie on his bed to write. Yin Hanjiang watched at his side as he wrote crooked characters. His Venerable One's calligraphy had always been very good. "My writing became good after I grew up," Wenren he said. "Back then, all I cared about was martial arts and I looked down on literary stuff. Every day, I wanted to cut off my teacher's beard and make it into a brush to send to him." He smiled. "Only later did I learn how useful being literate was. Martial prowess can protect the kingdom but literature can educate the people. That's why you looked favorably on Zhongli Qian?" Yin Hanjiang asked, resting his chin in his hand. The wounds covering his body had mostly healed, only leaving some scary-looking scars. "In times of chaos, the Wenren clan is needed, but in times of prosperity, people like Zhongli Qian are needed. Without us, chaos will never become prosperity, but without them, prosperity will soon fall back into chaos," Wenren he said. After 1 month, Marshal Wenren came back and Wenren Wu got beaten again just as he said. By now, little Yin Hanjiang was no longer angry about it. He had realized that here, anyone could give Brother Awu a few smacks. He got a small beating every 3 days and a major one every 5. Even his 10-year-old sister, Wenren Yan, gave him a scratch after he drank her wine. Yin Hanjiang's face was covered with scars and he had originally thought of wearing a mask, but he noticed that many people in the border town had scarred faces. There were even some with missing hands and legs, but no one looked at them differently. Brother Awu told him that these were veterans or civilians who had been injured. Here, everyone accepted their scars and laughed at life. No one pitied themselves, because once you thought like that, you would be truly pitiful. Thus, Yin Hanjiang learned to face people without wearing a mask. No one around him looked at him oddly, and even 10-year-old Wenren Yan adored this little brother, often sneaking the vegetables she didn't like to him. Yin Hanjiang knew that these people were only his Venerable One's memories. His Venerable One's buried memories turned out to be so gentle. In this way, he lived happily for more than a year. What was to come, would come. Things that had already happened could not be changed, and so Wenren He's memories turned to that chapter. After the army was recalled, Wenren Wu ran to the capital after recovering from his injuries and found the severed heads hanging on the city wall. Digging around within a pile of corpses, he screamed and cried within the mass grave, as little Yin Hanjiang silently watched everything unfold. All of these people, some resembling his Venerable One, some looking a little similar to him, some looking nothing like him, all of them gone just that easily. Life was such a fleeting thing. Right now, the two lonely figures huddled together and lit a fire. Beheaded criminals weren't buried, and the young Wenren Wu didn't have the capability to buy coffins for all of his dead family. He himself was a wanted criminal right now. He laid the countless headless corpses out in rows and set fire to them one by one. Yin Hanjiang didn't help, just watching him. "I remember you seemed to like fires." After lighting the last body, a 10-year-old who might have been Wenren Yan, Wenren he turned to Yin Hanjiang. After a moment of silence, Yin Hanjiang shook his head and said hoarsely, "I like to burn those who've sinned so the bodies once used to commit such crimes can go on to illuminate the night sky. I think that's all they're good for, but this is different. The Wenren clan wasn't evil. They all deserved to live. I don't want them to burn." Little Yin Hanjiang covered his mouth, choking down sobs. Wenren he wiped away silent tears and said quietly, "Neither do I." Yin Hanjiang still remembered that when Wenren he had taken control of Xianyuan sect, he forbade his subordinates from harming any ordinary mortals. Anyone who disobeyed were killed by him with especially cruel methods. Back then, Yin Hanjiang said indifferently, "Venerable One, the Xianyuan sect is a demonic sect. If they are overly suppressed, they might rebel. Then anyone who rebels will die." Wenren he replied coldly then. "The common people are innocent." Back then, Yin Hanjiang was ignorant, only knowing how to follow orders. At this moment, he understood why it was that Wenren he was willing to descend into the path of slaughter to protect in the midst of death and bloodshed. What it was that stood behind Wenren he's back and provided his inexhaustible fighting intent. The common lives that Wenren he protected became his will to never admit defeat. As he protected them, they protected him. End chapter. Devil Venerable also wants to know. Chapter 75, Old Scars. Wenren he rode a horse, carrying 6-year-old little Yin Hanjiang in his lap, heading slowly toward the border with travel documents in hand. Little Yin Hanjiang lifted a hand and touched the bandages on Wenren he's face. "Do I look scary?" Wenren he asked. His hands and face were covered with burn wounds, which young Wenren Wu had inflicted on himself. After the Wenren clan's extermination, Wenren Wu rushed back to the capital with the help of Marshal Wenren's old subordinates but didn't manage to do anything other than recover his family's corpses. His father's friends couldn't help him much and could only prepare a false identity for him and told him to travel as far away as possible. Before the Wenren clan was exonerated, he must not return. Since Wenren Wu was a fugitive, in order to protect himself and not bring anyone else trouble, he threw himself into a bonfire, burning his face. Before his burns healed, he sped away from the capital, running into a checkpoint on the way where a disbelieving officer ripped off his bandages, revealing crimson and bloody flesh. No little Yin Hanjiang curled up in his lap, thinking about how the young Wenren Wu had spent these years. His whole family was dedicated to the country, yet now, he was the only one that remained. He wasn't more than a 15-year-old boy, having not long ago been a mischievous troublemaker who caused chaos wherever he went, but now he needed to hide his name and identity, crushing down his willful and carefree nature, destroying his own uncommonly handsome face and facing a world filled with malice, all by himself. A cultivator could heal any sort of injury. By the time Yin Hanjiang met Wenren he had already been cultivating for 200 years and was powerful enough to resemble a deity. He knew no match in the cultivation world, an embodiment of strength itself. No one would be able to imagine he once had such a past. Even though Yin Hanjiang had occasionally heard Wenren he bring up the past, he was unable to connect what he heard with the man he knew. Only now did Yin Hanjiang realize more clearly than ever, that his Venerable wasn't a deity. He was a flesh and blood mortal, who understood better than anyone what pain was. Little Yin Hanjiang climbed up, wrapping his arms around Wenren he's neck and raising his head to kiss his bandages. "Hurts," he said softly. "What are you thinking?" Wenren he poked Yin Hanjiang in the head. 350 years have passed, so how could it still hurt? In his memories, certain special points couldn't be changed. After all, the events had all already happened. At points when Wenren Wu's emotions were most intense, Wenren he would be forced down to do the same actions. But during this blank space which he had no particular impression of, he could stay level-headed. Yin Hanjiang didn't say anything and just buried his head in Wenren he's shoulder. They traveled for half a year before arriving at the border. It was no longer the border they had left, after the 9 cities had been ceded to the enemy forces. Back then, I knew I couldn't kill the worthless emperor, so I fled back to the border and infiltrated the occupied cities in order to assassinate as many of the enemy leaders as possible. Wenren he said to Yin Hanjiang. The halberd I always used was in the family manor, so my only wish was to return home and take back my weapon. Yin Hanjiang's heart clenched. He watched as young Wenren Wu, instead of becoming an official with recommendations, relied on his martial arts skills and leapt the city wall at midnight. He ran the rest of the way, avoiding enemy soldiers for several days and nights, until he arrived at the town where he had lived. He had thought that if he returned home, even if his family wasn't there, there would be traces left of his life, as well as his weapon and the wine his parents had buried for his sister. But when he arrived, he distantly saw fires in the evening light. He killed a lone enemy soldier and stole his clothes in order to sneak into the town, finding it abandoned to flames. Dr. Li, Wang Whiskers, and so many other people he knew were now corpses sprawled across the streets. The enemy soldiers had dug out Wenren Yan's wine, and were now drinking it as they celebrated. Wenren Yan had been too young to have any thoughts about marriage. All she knew was that marrying someone was like finding someone to take care of her like her father. She knew her father liked to drink, and so she treasured her wine, thinking about digging it up and bringing it with her when she got married. She had shown off her fine wine in front of Wenren the whole day, making him mad enough that he dug it up and drank it. The wine she had treasured like her own life had all been wasted, the jars smashed before the doors of the manor. Kill them. Kill them all. Burn them. Make them into lamps to burn eternally. Little Yin Hanjiang spoke beside Wenren. His face was twisting. This was Wenren memories, and when Wenren entered a particular frame of mind, Yin Hanjiang would be separated from the world. If Wenren could see him, everyone else could see him. If Wenren couldn't, no one else could. Right now, Wenren didn't notice Yin Hanjiang. Staring at the heartless scene before him, he gripped his arms so hard his nails broke skin, forcing himself to endure. He couldn't go, he couldn't go. He was all that was left of his family, so he must survive. There was no meaning at all in killing a handful of people. He needed to survive in order to find his chance. He covered his eyes, then turned around and ran, leaving the town behind. When he was in the deserted wilderness, he finally collapsed on the ground, curling up, burying his head in his arms and letting out an inhuman howl. Little Yin Hanjiang stood to one side, watching his brother Awu but unable to do anything else. As he watched, a man descended from the sky at Wenren side. Looking loftily down at him as he spoke, "I was drawn here by the smell of blood from this town and looking to capture a few resentful ghosts, but the spirit's resentment was completely insufficient. I thought I wasted a trip, but who knew I'd run into a good prospect like you." Yin Hanjiang knew that this was a demonic cultivator at the nascent soul stage. Hearing someone suddenly talk to him, Wenren hid away his pain, lifting his head and saying coldly, "Who are you? To you ordinary mortals, I should be considered a god, huh? Ha 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 ha." The demonic cultivator burst into haughty laughter. "How about it? Do you want revenge? I have here a manual for the path of slaughter. It's not my path, but it would be a waste to throw it away. I need someone to try it, so what do you say?" Wenren refused. "However strong one person's martial arts is, they can't take on an army. My family's martial arts are strong enough. I don't need yours. Ha 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 ha." "With your handful of external martial arts techniques," the demonic cultivator said, "the blades on a battlefield are merciless and anyone would die no matter how strong their martial arts are, but this method is different. I won't take you as a master." Wenren wasn't dumb. After suffering so many tragedies, he was highly on guard. "And I don't need you to. I just want to see how powerful this method is. This manual says that the path of slaughter is the supreme demonic path, and those who succeed will become the demonic path star of death, unmatched within the cultivation world." Tut, tut, a lot of hot air. The last line says that in all of history, of the over 1,000 people who have tried this path, not one has made it to nascent soul. Not even a single nascent soul, and it wants to brag about being the supreme demonic path? How come? I don't believe it. What do you think? Do you want it? If you do, all you have to do is hand over a droplet of blood. The demonic cultivator waved the book in front of Wenren. The demonic cultivator flipped open the first page, holding it in front of Wenren eyes. At a glance, Wenren was entranced by the mysteries recorded within. Before he could read more than a few lines, the demonic cultivator closed the book and held out a hand maliciously. I won't trick you. I can use this drop of blood to control you. If you manage to form a nascent soul, I can take it and switch to the path of slaughter. If you fail, you'll die in the heavenly tribulation and I can use your golden core to make elixirs. But either way, you'll have enough time to gain power and take revenge. How about it? Wenren hesitated for a long time, but eventually, he stuck out a hand and offered a drop of his blood in exchange to receiving the book. The demonic cultivator flew away, laughing. Seeing that a human could fly in the sky, Wenren clutched the manual in his hands tighter, his expression twisted and his eyes hazy. Brother Awu. Little Yin Hanjiang clung to Wenren leg. No matter how much he shouted, he had been unable to call him awake. Don't worry. Everything's fine. It's all in the past. Wenren put down the book and picked up Yin Hanjiang, tapping him on the forehead. It's just a memory. 300 years have passed and aren't I still alive? And that method was indeed what that demonic cultivator said it was, providing the power to take on 100 men. Little Yin Hanjiang just held him tightly, muttering, Awu, my Awu. Not Venerable One, just Awu. Yin Hanjiang felt sympathy for Wenren with his entire heart. He no longer looked at him as a god to worship, and this was no longer the dedication of a subordinate to protect his master. He simply wanted to use his own tiny body to protect Wenren and shield him from all the cruelties of the world. Don't cry. Awu isn't crying, is he? Wenren patted Yin Hanjiang on the head and suddenly discovered that the scars on Yin Hanjiang's face and body had disappeared. Dr. Li had once said that Yin Hanjiang would never fully recover and would be left with scars and would be crippled. This place was Wenren's memories, not Yin Hanjiang's, and if he wanted to recover, he could do so fully. But he didn't and just became as what Dr. Li said, crippled and disfigured, brooding and quiet, his thoughts unknown. Now his scars had vanished on their own. Wenren examined his smooth face and said, How come you're healed? Yin Hanjiang felt his face and was confused himself. He'd had no notions of wanting to recover, but without even noticing it, he had slowly gotten better on his own. They were both stumped, and after thinking for a while without figuring it out, Wenren patted Yin Hanjiang on the head. I'm so glad you're recovering. He stared intently at Yin Hanjiang. Reliving his old memories, he finally realized why he had left Yin Hanjiang alone on a mountain and ignored him for years after saving him. To him, Yin Hanjiang was an incomplete promise. At the moment when Wenren found him, dusty memories from many years ago were reawakened, stirring an old ache in his heart. He saw history repeating before his eyes, and as he faced this young child, he didn't know how to comfort him. All Wenren could do was give Yin Hanjiang everything he hadn't had. A healthy body, a secure environment, a method guaranteed to be safe, and a sword that could give him power. And, when Yin Hanjiang grew up, it was at a safe and peaceful border. So, he donned his armor again, for the sake of his cultivation stage which had stagnated for long, but also in order to make sure that a certain child no longer hate the world. End chapter. Devil Venerable also wants to know. Chapter 76, My Awu. Time passed differently within his consciousness compared to outside. Its speed was related to the depth of Wenren's memories, so the next 10 years passed like an instant to Yin Hanjiang. He was an observer in this world, looking on as 10 years flew by and Wenren changed his name, running around within the occupied cities and saving whoever he came across. All the while, he was gathering strength and waiting for his opportunity. At the same time, great changes occurred in the imperial court. With the new emperor's rise to power, the country became more prosperous and its military stronger. The new emperor hoped to take back the lost lands and was waiting to build up power. War could break out any instant. Wenren took the opportunity to ally with the underground resistance in the cities, and with cooperation from inside and outside, they drove the foreign tribe out in one fell swoop. His martial arts were powerful and he commanded forces with skill, as well as having the support of the civilians at the border. He built up a reputation within the military, waiting for his opportunity, then revealed himself as the orphan son of Marshal Wenren. Everyone rallied in support of him, and faced with his influence, the court had no choice but to exonerate the Wenren clan. After laying low for 10 years, Wenren finally entered the battle as a general, taking back the 9 cities in one move and pushing the tribal people back to the prairies where they didn't dare to emerge again. By this point, his natural talent in cultivation had brought him to the peak of core formation. Wenren had climbed to the core formation stage quickly through conflict, but at that moment, he felt himself reach a bottleneck. No matter how many people he killed or how much territory he took back, he was unable to break through. Just as the manual had said, it was very difficult to break through to the nascent soul stage with the path of slaughter. By now, that demonic cultivator returned. He made a suggestion. Wenren had not yet forged a bonded weapon. A meteor had just fallen onto the prairies, starting a fire which burned for half a month. The tribal people lost their grazing lands and many of their livestock had starved to death. Wenren discovered a divine metal within the meteor and forged it into a halberd with divine fire, but no matter what he did, he couldn't merge with it and make it his bonded weapon. The prairie fire destroyed the foreign tribe's power, and they had no choice but to surrender, becoming vassal states who sent tribute to the imperial court every year. The new emperor negotiated peace, and the war that had lasted for 3 years finally ended. Wenren was unable to accept this. When his town was slaughtered, he had vowed to exterminate the enemy tribe, not leaving a single soldier or civilian. The official that the court sent to negotiate the surrender happened to be a branch member of the Zhongli clan named Zhongli Chu. He was also a core formation cultivator and had great prestige. In one move, he brought Wenren under control, forced him to give up his leadership and put him under house arrest. Rage burned within Wenren. Holding his newly forged halberd, his expression was dark and vicious, and he showed faint signs of deviation. Yin Hanjiang was still tiny after 15 years had passed. He had never seen his Venerable One like this before and hugged his leg, wishing he would return to normal, but Wenren was immersed deep within his memories and didn't notice him. Tut tut, looking at your state, you'll probably never break through to nascent soul. The demonic cultivator had returned. He figured Wenren should be forming a nascent soul any time now, so he often hung around the border, waiting for his chance. The path of slaughter is indeed quick. I've never heard of someone making it from Qi gathering to core formation in just 10 years. But in the past 5 years, you've made no progress. The path of slaughter is easier to cultivate than other paths. You only need to kill people to advance, but the more you kill, the stronger your inner demons will be, and you'll be unable to pass your nascent soul inner demon tribulation. No wonder nascent soul is a threshold that no one can surmount on the path of slaughter. Wenren swung his halberd at the demonic cultivator, who quickly backed off. Whoa, you've become so addicted to killing that you even want to kill me. How about this? I have an idea for you. You've been unable to merge with that magic weapon probably because it doesn't have a consciousness. Consciousness can be nurtured by heaven and earth, or created by sealing souls within it. Haven't you captured many prisoners of war? There are also herders who have fled the fires and come to the cities, and are being managed in the prisoner of war camps. Altogether, it probably comes up to 100,000 people. They're of different races and we can't see eye to eye. Since you have a grudge against them, you don't need to see them as people. Think about it, with 100,000 killings and 100,000 souls refined into your halberd, shouldn't you be able to break through to nascent soul? At nascent soul, what could the disciple of the Zhongli clan do to you? Can an exoneration make up for the over 100 lives of the Wenren clan? You might as well declare yourself a king and slaughter your way into the capital, eliminating the corrupt officials of the court, making the emperor into a figurehead and ruling yourself. Doesn't that sound better? Those words, which were dripping with poison, ate at Wenren. At night, he left the manor with his halberd in hand, breaking into the prisoner camp. His gaze slowly swept across the battered and exhausted prisoners, sleeping huddled together. It was hard to recognize the tribal people's foreign features. In Wenrenwu's eyes, their faces overlapped with the soldiers who had slaughtered his town years ago. Awu. Still a 5 or 6-year-old child, Yin Hanjiang grabbed Wenrenwu's leg, wishing he would wake up. But this was only a memory, and all of Yin Hanjiang's actions had no meaning. Wenren he raised his halberd, aiming it at a prisoner wearing tattered clothing. When he was about to strike, he heard the weak voice of a child say, "Mother, I'm hungry." He regained awareness. Looking at the halberd in his hand, his body began to shake uncontrollably. What was he doing? Taking action against defeated soldiers, the elderly, women and children, in order to seal their souls eternally within this halberd. It was the same as the deeds of the tribe's heartless soldiers had once carried out against his hometown. "Eh? What are you thinking?" the demonic cultivator asking. "Why aren't you doing anything?" Not long ago, he had sworn to protect the common people living at the border, but now, he had become the same kind of slaughterer as his enemies. When he refused his orders and insisted on slaughtering the foreign tribes, what had Zhongli Chu said? "Marshal Wenren, you're a genius commander with unrivaled martial arts. You can single-handedly wipe out all life on the prairies, but what good would that do? When the spring breeze blows, the grass will sprout again. The vast prairie needs people to manage it, herd cows and sheep and raise horses. After you kill these people, where will the court find people to raise herds? Do you want the border army to manage the lands while you make yourself king of this territory? Or do you want exiled criminals to be sent there, so in a few generations, a new enemy tribe emerges? You are a general, so you want to slay the enemy and defend the kingdom. But prolonged military campaigns will only empty the country's treasury, and the fighting will disrupt the lives of the civilians living at the border. Only by letting the enemy feel the pain of a defeat, then educating and overseeing them, opening up trade and commerce, can we truly defend the border and ensure lasting peace. You say that your grudge from 15 years ago for the slaughter of your town is still unavenged, and I understand you. But looking into the future, this grudge must stop here. Back then, Wenren just thought Zhongli Chu was just full of it. Because he hadn't suffered, he didn't understand how deep this grudge ran. But now, he stood in the sky and watched the prisoners living lives like animals in the prison camps. If he killed them and used them to refine his weapon, he could break through to the nascent soul stage and truly become a god of death. If he let them go, he would never have any possibility of advancing, and the demonic cultivator next to him was coveting his golden core. Wenrenwu's sight slowly turned from the prisoners to the demonic cultivator. The man, who called himself Wanderer Yinsha, said suspiciously, "What are you looking at me for? The ants below you are your targets. With all these people here, even if you aren't willing to kill them, I'll take their souls." After experiencing the tragedies of the war and fire, they're each filled with resentment, so they'll make top-quality materials. It's hard for me to even let you have them. Wenrenwu raised his halberd, but instead of pointing to the prisoners, it now pointed at Wanderer Yinsha. "What are you doing?" Wanderer Yinsha asked. "Even if they're barbarians, they can be educated and become our citizens. A general's duty is protecting the common people. I won't kill prisoners of war, and I won't allow someone to take advantage of warfare to capture souls for evil techniques." As he spoke, his black halberd thrust toward Wanderer Yinsha. The nascent soul stage Wanderer Yinsha calmly took out an item, a doll stained with Wenrenwu's blood. He stuck a needle through its chest, and Wenrenwu felt deep agony there. Bearing the pain, he continued to attack, but he had no way to defeat the demonic cultivator, who was a realm higher than him and was captured within a few moves. "Forget it, I've wasted 15 years for nothing. The path of slaughter isn't as strong as it claimed to be, nothing but empty words. At least I still have a golden core and these resentful spirits, and after I refine them, they should be perfect for breaking through to deity transformation, so it wasn't a complete waste. As he spoke, Wanderer Yinsha reached toward Wenrenwu's dantian and was about to take his golden core. As Wanderer Yinsha took apart the doll painted with Wenrenwu's blood and tore off each limb, Wenrenwu could feel how he lose control of same parts of his body until he could only lay down powerlessly, unable to move and was only capable of watching. He raised his head, looking up to the myriad stars dotting the sky above the prairie, and felt unwilling. 15 years ago, he hadn't been able to protect his family and the civilians at the border. Now 15 years later, he was still unable to protect his former enemies, the prisoners of war. Wenrenwu gripped his halberd tightly. It was covered with fresh blood. The halberd had been forged from the meteorite's iron, and no matter how much blood it absorbed, he was unable to control it and couldn't use it to fly. Right now, Wenrenwu had only one thought left. The common lives at the border no longer needed Wenrenwu, so then the only use he had for this life was protecting peace and securing the future. Kill. Kill this demonic cultivator. Killing intent filled him, but the intention to protect allowed him to maintain his rationality. At the moment when Wanderer Yinsha took out Wenrenwu's golden core, that halberd which had never responded before moved. It absorbed the blood covering it and let out faint golden rays of light. In the sky, Polis shone. The power of the star called down by the light of the halberd. The halberd flew up and slashed through the night with a streak of golden light, severing Wanderer Yinsha's arm. The golden core returned to Wenrenwu's dantian. Wenrenwu's upper robe fell away, revealing the scars crisscrossing his body which he had gained in years of fighting at the border, the proof of him protecting his homeland. As starlight descended, Wenrenwu circulated his spiritual energy. While his halberd did battle with Wanderer Yinsha using the power of the stars, he needed to break through to nascent soul. Only a battle that put his life on the line could have a chance of killing his opponent. At this point, whether or not he could pass his heart demon tribulation and whether or not he would survive was no longer important to him. All he needed was the burst of power at the instant he formed his nascent soul. The inexhaustible power of the stars restored Wenrenwu's injured body. With the thought, his halberd returned to his hand. All the deaths he had caused flashed before his eyes, but Wenrenwu wasn't shaken as he clutched the halberd firmly. With the spiritual energy from the formation of his nascent soul, his halberd thrust through the sky and aimed for Wanderer Yinsha. Rays of frosty light shone out. At the last moment before daybreak, the halberd pierced Wanderer Yinsha's dantian. Wenrenwu stood in the sky, gazing silently at the ground below. Polis shone above his head, reflecting the golden patterns of light on the halberd. Before the power of the stars, Wanderer Yinsha's soul was scattered. 2 streaks of blood ran from Wenrenwu's eyes. In the end, he hadn't been able to take his revenge. Marshal Wenren's righteousness fills this one with admiration, Zhongli Chu said respectfully as he slowly walked up to Wenren. I followed you here, originally intending to sacrifice myself to stop you, but I didn't imagine that you would show great virtue by abandoning your vengeance and martyring yourself. Today, Marshal Wenren has used battle to stop the dagger axe, and truly deserves the name of Wu. Wenrenwu glanced at Zhongli Chu and said in a low voice, you don't need to worry about me using a cultivator's power to mess with imperial matters. From now on, Wenrenwu no longer exists in this world. There is only Wenren. When war broke out once more and disaster descended to earth, Wenren would be there. That night, Wenrenwu died from old injuries the night before peace was negotiated, being posthumously awarded the title of the North Defender King. Not long after, a new nascent soul stage expert suddenly appeared among the demonic sects. In just a few months, he destroyed several sects who had harmed the ordinary people. He wielded the 7-killing halberd and was surrounded by the aura of death, calling himself Wenren. At the end of the memories, Yin Hanjiang was ejected from Wenrenhe's consciousness. Having relived the past, Wenrenhe also slowly opened his eyes. Within Yin Hanjiang's soul, he saw that the blood stain that had prevented him from approaching had transformed into a vast circle of light. Wenrenhe looked into it and found it was every moment of little Yin Hanjiang's experiences in his memories. The circle of light carried Wenrenhe up into the sky, hanging at the peak of Yin Hanjiang's consciousness and beginning to absorb all the lights around it. The points of light which were like stars gathered together and became a blinding radiance that illuminated the previously dark expanse of Yin Hanjiang's soul, causing all the blood stains to vanish under its light. Wenrenhe smiled. He left Yin Hanjiang's consciousness and reappeared in the real world. Yin Hanjiang opened his eyes and for a moment, he didn't know where he was. He looked around himself. All the Wenrenhe that was crowding his sight vanished one by one, only leaving the one that resembled him the least in front Yin Hanjiang. No, it wasn't the one least resembling him. It was the true Wenrenhe that he had never seen before. Admiration and reverence had led him to treat this man as a deity. Thinking that he could never match up, he had automatically retreated from him and put up a boundary between them. Yin Hanjiang extended his arms to the man before him, holding him tight. "My Awu," he said quietly. Even if he was unable to touch him right now, he needed to hold him. However, when Yin Hanjiang's arms tightened, he touched a solid body. Even Wenrenhe was shocked. He had already returned the divine bloodstone to Bailey Qingmiao, so how was his body solid? "Where's the 7-killing halberd?" Wenrenhe felt in his kinkan pouch for it. Since he had no material body, he had been unable to store it inside his body and kept it in a kinkan pouch all this time, but it was no longer there. The army-crushing spike lying by the bed hummed toward Wenrenhe's chest, as if greeting something. Yin Hanjiang linked to the army-crushing spike's intent activated and he placed his hand against his Venerable One's chest. In here. The 7-killing halberd had been forged from a heavenly meteorite. Back then, the goddess in charge of disasters had flung it to the earth to bring devastation to the prairies, so the iron contained the power of the primordial goddess. Because of this power within it, Wenrenwu had been unable to awaken it as his bonded weapon. It was also because of it that after it awakened, it commanded the power of the stars and absorbed Wenrenhe's blood. Within his memories, Wenrenhe had relived everything that happened back then and once more awakened the divine power within the 7-killing halberd. It fused with his body of primordial chaos and without knowing it, he had reformed his physical form and cultivated a divine body. Cultivation was about cultivating the mind. While treating Yin Hanjiang, Wenrenhe had returned to his origins and rediscovered his original desires that had set him down the path of cultivation. Wenrenhe clasped the hand that Yin Hanjiang had placed on his chest. "Yin Hanjiang, I've returned." "Welcome back, Venerable One," Yin Hanjiang said respectfully, but he still had his arms around Wenrenhe and was unwilling to release him. "Can sect leader Yin return this Venerable One's robes to him?" Wenrenhe asked. After reforming his body, his illusory clothes had disappeared. The two had just awakened from their soul communion, so they weren't in a normal frame of mind and hadn't noticed until now. But with Yin Hanjiang hugging him, Wenrenhe began to feel a bit awkward. "No." Yin Hanjiang said stubbornly. "The Venerable One bestowed it to me himself. This Venerable One has just returned to Xianyuan sect and his subordinate was already depriving him of even his clothes." Wenrenhe said with a smile. "That's right." Yin Hanjiang looked at Wenrenhe, his expression was the same as that of his child self. Wenrenhe laughed and leaned over to take back his robe. Their struggles continued for several days until Yin Hanjiang became exhausted and laid tiredly in Wenrenhe's arms. End chapter.